Alright, like the title suggests, in today's video we have a mini ITX gaming computer build here in 2021 for you. I'm going to flip you over here. We're going to run down through the components that make up this system. Then I'm going to put a time lapse of the build together for you. Then I'll be back with my conclusions to building this case we're building in today. This ain't going to be a how-to or step-by-step guide on how to build a gaming computer. But if you need one of those, I will put a card up there for you. It will show you how to build one step by step. This is a mini ITX build. If you're new to PC building, or if you have never built a PC before, I would not recommend these kind of builds for you. Not to start out with. They're awful tight, they're awful confined. They're a little bit harder to build in than a regular size case or a micro ATX case or a full size ATX case. But let's flip you over here and we'll run down through the parts and then we'll put it into this system. Alright, to start out with, we're going to start out with the motherboard. We have the GIGABYTE B450i AORUS Pro Wi-Fi motherboard. For the CPU power, we do have the AMD Ryzen 7 2700, which is 8-core, 16-thread processor. I couldn't find the stock heatsink that came with this processor when I bought it. So, the only other thing I really had that would fit on an AM4 socket is this Hyper T4 that was laying back there on the shelf. So we're going to be putting that into the build as well. For RAM, we have G.SKILL Ripjaws 5 series, 16 gigs, two 8 gig sticks running at 3600 megahertz speed. For the only storage in the system, we have the Silicon Power 512 gig NVMe M.2 solid state drive. For the graphical power in the system, we have the XFX Radeon RX 580 8 gigabit graphics card. To power the whole system, we have the Corsair CX series CX 550 550 watt 80 plus bronze certified non-modular power supply. And if you're going to be building a mini ITX system, I would recommend, if possible, to get you a fully or at least a semi-modular power supply where you don't have all them cables to deal with. The case that we're building in today is the BitFenix Prodigy Arctic White. This case usually runs about $95, but I found mine on a good deal here locally through a thrift shop for about 15 bucks. Mine also has a 120 fan in the front and a 120 fan in the back, where they normally just come with a 120 fan in the back. So that was a pretty good add-on. Alright guys, and that's the parts that I'm going to be putting in this system. Now I'm going to put a time lapse of the build together for you. And then I'll be back with my conclusions and my thoughts on this build. is the ports that I put into this system. Shows you a time lapse of me building the gaming computer in the Prodigy case. There's a few things I left out. I didn't really show you the cable management, or I didn't show you hooking up the cables. Just due to the small form factor of it, I couldn't get the camera set up where I could get a decent view to show you the hooking up of the cables. So I did leave that port out. At the end, you did see a bit of the cable management that I did, which in a case like this, there ain't a whole lot of options for cable management. But I did do the best that I could. Now, there was a little bit that, a couple zip ties I threw into it there at the end. I basically did that just to hold the cables back where they wouldn't get into the fans in the system. Speaking of the fans, due to that Hyper T4 and the way it sets on there, the fan is setting up a little bit higher than what the heatsink is, and that's due to the RAM issue. And because that heatsink's setting sideways instead of front to back like it should, as I've mentioned in my other videos about that heatsink, it sets kind of strangely, it sets the opposite way as most tire heatsinks, which I really ain't real happy with. But because of that, I had to take that back fan out completely out of the back of the case, which it's going to impede some of the airflow, I believe, in the case. And the front fan, it's got a 120 fan in the bottom of it. Well, mine did because I bought it used. I tried to move it up into a top slot to put the 120 right over top of the GPU and CPU. But because of the way the screw layout is on the front of the case, I couldn't put that in the top slot to where it could push the air through where it really needs. Now that 120 fan that's an intake is shooting at the bottom, then it's shooting in through the hard drives instead of shooting in through where the main components is. So before I do any testing or anything with this system, I'll probably go ahead and swap out that Hyper T4 and put in the stock heatsink. I did order the stock heatsink that comes with the 2700. It just didn't come to me in time for me to do the video, to get this video put up on time. So before I do any kind of testing or anything with this system, I'll probably swap that Hyper T4 out for the stock heatsink that comes with the 2700. Alright guys, I think that's going to pretty well wrap it up for today. Make sure you get down and give me a like on this video if you like this kind of content. Give me a dislike if you didn't. There's that comment section below. I go through them every weekend here at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the US on Saturday morning on my live stream. If you really like this kind of content, maybe think about hitting that subscribe button, turn that notification bell where you're notified next time I put out a video or go live here on YouTube. And also, if you're interested, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I don't kill your inbox, but I do put up photos and new stuff I have coming in to give you an idea of what's coming up on the channel. If there's any news about my live stream, if I got canceled or changed the time, it's where you also get that information. But with all that being said, you all have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video or live stream.